Good afternoon. It is yet again another installment of the Fund Coach, Huddle Up with Fund Coach. I'm Mark Duncan. I'm the Fund Coach. It is a pleasure to be with you. I try to be here every Thursday at noon and bring you whatever I can about the benefits of relationship fundraising. Um, I want to start today. I'm going to pretty much go in fairly hard. It is November. Um, 9 times out of 10, many of the nonprofit organizations who have a fiscal year that begins in January and ends in December, you are probably knee deep in budget planning for 2023, and you're also knee deep in trying to secure the funds that you need for this year, making sure you meet that deadline of December 31st. And all this has prompted me to really give some serious thought about investing in fundraising and why nonprofits, and I'm talking primarily about those nonprofits that are in the human services or social services space. I'm not talking about higher education. I'm not talking about healthcare. They tend to uh, focus on fundraising in the way that I'm talking about today. But if you're not one of those, you're going to want to hear what I have to say today. So why is it that nonprofit organizations, uh, primarily in the social and human services space, are not investing in fundraising? First of all, what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is many times uh, boards, staff will look at fundraising as something that they have to do, and they're very, very conservative about planning for fundraising efforts, trying to do as little as they can to generate significant dollars. And typically, that does not work out. The investment or the expenses are probably not enough to do what you need to do. So I want to talk about three things that are really the reason why nonprofits need to invest more, and the three things that tend to get in the way. So, number one, I want to talk about budget. Um, for nonprofit organizations, your budget should reflect your mission. Your budget, when you look at it, should be telling you a story about how you are going to impact the lives of the people that you serve. And so when you put your budget together, particularly for fundraising, many times we look at the fundraising expense line as just that, an expense. And we need to start looking at the expenses associated with fundraising as an investment that you're going to get a return on. So that includes any activities that you are planning, direct mail pieces, all of those things. If you look at it from that perspective and look at the potential return that you're going to get on the investment, then you might be willing, hopefully, to make a more significant investment in your fundraising efforts. Many times we look at them as expenses, as burdens, and sometimes, especially when it gets down to trying to balance the budget or before you're presenting the budget to the board for approval, one of the first things that gets looked at is, we can't do that event. Or we wanted to do 4 direct mail pieces, and I think we need to drop down to 3 or to 2. And so when we start bargaining with ourselves during the budget time and fundraising investments are on the chopping block, you're not going to achieve the fundraising expectations that you have if you do that. So the first thing you need to do is when you are budgeting for your fundraising, look at the expenses associated with fundraising as an investment. Okay, that includes staff too. The budgeting that you have for paying staff who focus solely on fundraising, and those who are doing it partially. One thing you should also do in your budgeting is you should be paying attention to your cost to raise a dollar. And you should be tracking that on a regular basis. And so, what do I mean by that? You need to understand what the investment is that you are making in fundraising, and what is the return on that investment. So, you're taking your fundraising costs, which equal expenses, and you are dividing that by the gross revenue that you get from fundraising, and that will tell you how much it's costing you to raise a dollar. In some cases, you could be spending 20 cents to raise a dollar. You should probably not be spending any more than 30 cents. I'll even let you go as high as 40 cents to raise a dollar. Sometimes when we're doing acquisition mail, then that cost gets a lot higher. Uh, and believe it or not, relationship fundraising actually costs the least amount of money to raise a dollar. When you are spending time with high net worth individuals who have the capacity to give you 5,000, 10,000, $15,000, and you can accomplish that in what probably would amount to 4 or 5 hours of your time, and maybe 2 or 3 cups of coffee and a lunch. When you look at the cost of that versus what the return on that investment of time and resources is, that's where you should be spending most of your time. And so, how do you get there? You invest in efforts that can create a pipeline of prospects that have capacity so that you can begin to develop relationships and spend time with them. Spending time, making the case, making the ask, and closing the deal. That's an investment, and you will see a significant return on that investment. So that's budget. So let's talk about staffing. Okay. So often I speak to nonprofit leaders who are executive directors, CEOs, and perhaps they don't have a fundraising person on their staff, or they do, but that fundraising person is being drawn into non fundraising related activities. And for those of you who are in positions like that, you know exactly what I mean. You're sitting in your office, you're charting out a plan to get out and visit, 5, 10 people in the next couple of weeks. Someone walks by your office and says, "Hey, are you busy? I need your help." And then you get sucked in, right? And that's okay. These things happen, but you've got to learn to protect your time as a fundraiser, and executive directors and the rest of the staff have to recognize that your time is valuable as a fundraiser, and to be mindful of when they come to you asking for assistance. When you're talking about staff and thinking about staffing, you also want to make sure that you have enough time. And if you're an executive director and you don't have a development person, if you're not able to spend at least 20% of your time on fundraising, that's the equivalent of 1 day a week if it's a 5-day week on fundraising. That means you're not able to devote enough time to it, and you need to hire someone, especially if you are sitting on a portfolio of 100 or 200 individuals that have been giving to your organization that you know have capacity, that you know you need to go out and visit with, but you don't have time to do that because your time is being spent running the organization. So, really taking a look at your time and making sure that you are delegating your time accordingly so that you can invest that time on getting out and meeting with individuals who have capacity, because the return on the investment of that time is going to be a lot greater than if you are stuck in the office. If you are hiring a staff person who is focused on development, you want to make sure that you're doing so when you know you have enough work for them to do. And that is a portfolio of probably at least 50 to 75 individuals who have capacity that you haven't had time to get to. Don't hire a development person who's going to be a desk jockey, who's going to sit in their office and they're going to focus on doing direct mail and events and writing grants. And yes, all of those things are important, but the most important thing that they can be doing is getting out and meeting with those high net worth individuals that you know can give 5,000, 10,000, $15,000 to support your operation. Okay. It's the best use of their time. Second thing is you need to pay them well. Fundraisers who work in, particularly in social services, human services organizations, uh, typically do not get paid well. I will just say that they don't. And it's again because it is a I don't want to call it a philosophy, but it's a culture that says, we can hire this person and pay them $40,000, $45,000 a year. We just need somebody in that seat. When that person can do the same thing at a higher ed institution or healthcare institution for more than twice that as a gift officer. And I know if you're listening to me, you hear me say, well, we can't afford to do this. You can. Again, budget is mission. And so if you really want to do it, you can figure out a way to invest more of the resources in the things that are going to return more resources to your mission. Fundraising is not a cost center. It should be looked at as a revenue center. Second or third, um, if once you pay them well, train them well, give them the resources that they need to be successful. Whether it's joining an organization where they can connect with other fundraisers or workshops, conferences, working with a coach or a consultant, making sure that that person is set up to succeed. That is also an investment that should have a great return. Okay. So pay them well, train them well, praise them well. Everyone wants to work in an environment where they are valued. And so if your fundraiser is doing good work, generating large gifts for the organization, having some success with direct mail, secures a grant, has a wonderful event, make sure they know that they've done a good job and make sure they understand the impact that all that work that they put in is having on the people that are being served. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's about. Okay. And then finally, gauge them well. So praise them for their work, but you also want to gauge what they're doing, measure what they're doing, making sure that they are tracking metrics that will produce results, that produce revenue, that creates success and growth for your organization that impacts the lives of the people that you serve. Because the last thing you need is someone sitting in that seat who is not doing all that they can do, and also you giving them the resources to do it, to generate the funds that are needed to carry out your mission. Okay. So pay them well, train them well, praise them well, engage them well. When you do that with staffing, you will have great success in the fundraising space in your organization. And third, and the final thing I want to focus on, I'd be remiss if I did not mention it, and that is your organization's philanthropic culture, your culture of philanthropy. And this starts at the top, and it starts with your board. And if your board sees your organization as less than, or, and here's a term that's often thrown around that I rarely, if ever, use, and that is the word charity. If your board sees your organization as a charity, then you have the wrong people on your board. If your board members see your organization as a service, a mission, a center of impact, a game changer, those are the folks that you want serving in your leadership role on the board. Because if they're looking at your organization as a charity, that's exactly how they're going to treat it. And that's exactly how they're going to talk about it in the community. You want them talking about your organization as a place that makes a huge difference on the lives of the people being served. And they should be giving that way. So the culture of philanthropy that starts with the board has to be one that reflects your mission. That means every person on your board should be giving. So you should have 100% participation. And every person on your board should be giving at a major gifts level, whatever you define as a major gift, 500, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, 5,000, whatever that number is. Every member of your board should be giving at that level if they can. Culture of philanthropy is important because if it starts there, then they're going to hire an executive director or CEO that reflects the culture of philanthropy they set. And then that CEO or executive director is going to hire staff that reflects that culture of philanthropy. Starts at the top. And if you've got board members who are looking at your organization in a way that is a charity, and what I mean by that is that they're not taking your organization seriously. They're coming to events, um, they're, uh, you know, uh, participating and volunteering. But if they're not part of your strategy, they're not playing an integral role. And most importantly, if they're not introducing you to their high net worth friends who have capacity that can lead to a gift, once you build a relationship, make the ask, close the deal, then you may want to rethink who is on your board and think about a strategy that will allow those folks who either will work with you and change with you or should probably be doing something other than serving on your board. You thank them for their service. You thank them for the support that they've given. You hope that continues, but it is time for them to move on and for you to bring on board members who are going to reflect the culture of philanthropy that you need to push forward. So, again, the expenses associated with fundraising are an investment. That includes an investment in the activities, investment in staff, and also making sure that your culture of philanthropy reflects your mission. Because, as always, at the end of the day, this thing called fundraising is never about the dollars. It is always about what the dollars do for the people that you serve.